Elon Musk says Tesla is nothing without their fans, and he actually means it. Then he goes on to describe just how crazy Tesla's AI project is going to be over the next few years. Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I want to take a quick second to acknowledge the fact that my channel has had very few views recently. I've reached out in a post recently asking for your feedback. I've gotten a lot of feedback asking me to reduce the length of my videos, so I am going to try to do that, make things a little more efficient. And if you have feedback, please leave it in a comment to this video or in reply to my post. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and continuing on with me in this journey. All right, with that out of the way, let's turn to what Elon said. He said we are nothing without our fans, and he means that quite literally. If you look down at this picture down here, this is Giga Texas, the south side of the massive factory. You can see that they're putting up glass and actually building these huge fans. It looks like custom work, basically. Looks like they're going to have 6 of them. There's going to be a giant cooling station here, and in here will be approximately 50,000 of NVIDIA's H100 computers. And of course, last week at the shareholder meeting, I got a chance to drive by this. It is absolutely massive. The picture doesn't do it any justice. It's huge. The scale of this compute cluster is absolutely ginormous. So the cooling needs are going to be pretty outrageous, but that just starts the whole ball rolling here. Where things get really interesting is Elon's response to his own post here. He says sizing for approximately 130 megawatts of power and cooling this year, but will increase to greater than 500 megawatts over the next 18 months or so, aiming for about half Tesla AI hardware, half NVIDIA other. Play to win or don't play at all. I guess he's playing the game of GPUs. And I'll get back to that post in just a second, but a couple of replies first. Number 1, Jeff said, if FSD is basically done, what is the point of this massive GPU supercomputer? I replied Optimus a little bit snarkily, but that is actually true. Optimus will be a very big part of this. And then I said, plus FSD will never actually be done. It'll just approach 100% asymptotically. In other words, it will be the march of nines. You know, you have to keep adding the nines. It will never get to 100% completely safe driving. That's just impossible in the real world. You can be driving down the road and a lightning bolt strikes you, and that's not your fault at all. You can't do anything about that. That's a 1 in a trillion chance or something, but that means you can never be 100% safe. So there are things outside of the control of any Tesla that will make it impossible to get to 100%, but you can keep pursuing that and try to get as close as possible to 100%. And that, of course, is very important because every 9 that you get closer to 100% means that the car is that much safer and better to drive. And then, of course, we've got Optimus, but we'll get back to that in just a second. And then Matt Smith asks, who is providing the 500 megawatts of power? That is a very good question. This is a major issue right now. I have been looking at a lot of charts about power supply in the United States versus China, interestingly enough. China is ramping up energy generation massively, very rapidly, and I think they just passed the United States. I can't remember what month it is. I know they passed us, but it was very recent, like within the last few months. But they're kind of hockey sticking it, right? They're generating more and more energy, whereas the US isn't. That's going to become a critical issue in the next couple of years because these data clusters require massive amounts of power. In fact, a recent study said that the data centers online by 2030 could actually power 150 million Teslas. And that's somewhere around the number of passenger vehicles in the United States. So those are just massive numbers, very difficult to even wrap your head around. And it's going to become a significant problem very rapidly. So I wish that we had more insight about who is going to be providing the power, but we don't at this point, as far as I know. If you do know, definitely let me know in the comments. So a couple of quick details here. Number 1, the 130 megawatts is power plus cooling. So it's the GPU clusters and all. So it's the compute center, but part of that compute center energy budget is the cooling that's going to happen. And of course, if you look at these fans and you look at this entire building, which I assume is dedicated just to cooling, you're looking at a massive amount of power just to do the cooling. Did you know that your personal data is being bought and sold online right now? Yes, behind your back, data brokers are busy passing your data around for profit. And this exposes all of us to potential harassment, doxing, phishing scams, and even devastating identity theft. That's where Delete Me, today's sponsor, comes in. You and I have the right to stay private and protect our personal data. I know I need to protect my online data and privacy rights, but I didn't know where to start. Thank goodness for Delete Me, which takes the work out of protecting your online presence by removing you from hundreds of data brokers all year long. It's totally hands-off, so you don't have to do a thing after you sign up, which is great for me and my busy lifestyle. Delete Me proactively finds sites that have your personal data, like phone numbers, addresses, email address, and so on, and alerts the broker that you wish to have your data removed from their site. And if you have a particular custom removal request, just let Delete Me know and they'll take care of that too. Delete Me sends you a privacy report 7 days after you sign up, letting you know what sites had your data and what what has been protected, and Delete Me will monitor sites all year long and repeat the removal process as needed, helping protect you for the whole year. And since Delete Me is a US-based company and does all the work in-house, you can trust their results. I also love how simple Delete Me is to use. You submit your information, experts search for it online, requests are made to nefarious sites to remove your data, and Delete Me sends you a detailed report in 7 days and ongoing throughout the year. And it keeps working all year, protecting you from anyone trying to reacquire your data. Be sure to click my link in the description to get 20% off any consumer data protection plan and start feeling safer today. A big thanks to Delete Me for supporting this channel, and thank you for watching. Be sure to click my link in the description to get 20% off any consumer data protection plan, and now let's get back to it. And of course, I don't know the details about this center, but I assume what they'll do is push liquid through the data center, absorb the heat, then push it into this building where it's evaporatively cooled. And of course, Texas is rather warm in the summer. It can be over 40 degrees centigrade in the day, but you have to remember these GPUs are operating at over 90 degrees centigrade. So even 40 is like half as warm as that. So it will still effectively cool the liquid, and it can be repumped back into the data center. And then of course, you're not drawing the liquid directly out of the center and then pushing it through these fans. You're probably going to have some sort of compressor units like a heat pump or something like that that exchanges the heat and all of that kind of good stuff. So anyway, it will do what it needs to do, and it'll keep the data center at probably around 20 degrees centigrade or something along those lines. In other words, very comfortable for us humans, because that's what these computer chips like to have. But all of that is going to require a massive energy budget. I couldn't really tell you whether it's 50% or 20% or whatever, but it is a significant percentage of that entire energy budget. So it's not just 130 megawatts just for the GPUs, it's that plus the cooling budget. And then of course the other detail here is half Tesla AI hardware and half NVIDIA/other. And Elon responds to this in more detail next. So here you can see Holmars asking half Dojo, half NVIDIA, which was actually my thought as well, but Elon corrects that. He says mostly hardware for some Dojo. So what that actually means is that the half that he's talking about is mostly in the vehicles themselves. It's in our cars, not in these data centers, although he does say that there is some Dojo, but Dojo is going to play a relatively minor role in terms of the amount of megawatts of compute. And it actually makes this 130 megawatts and 500 megawatts a little easier to understand and explain how they're going to be able to install that, because if half of this is in vehicles, that is spread out all around the world, not at that data center. So you could maybe divide this number in half and make it 65 megawatts next year. And even more so, he might be talking about all of their data centers collectively. So all of their data centers collectively might be using on the order of 65 megawatts by the end of this year, with the other approximately 65 megawatts or on the order of that actually being done in our vehicles. So that is a pretty crazy thing when you think about the fact that some large percentage of Tesla's AI compute is actually going on in our vehicles, and that therefore it's able to be distributed around the world instead of having to be in these data clusters. And that is actually a major advantage that Tesla has over pretty much all of the other AI companies. And then Elon responds once again to himself. He likes to do that, which is very cool, and he gives us a lot more information when he does. He says, then Hardware 5, which has been renamed to AI 5. He said that in the shareholder meeting. Very, very cool. So Hardware 5 will no longer be Hardware 5. It'll be AI 5, as he says here, and as he said in the shareholder meeting, in the second half of next year. So I would assume at the end of 2025, we will begin to see vehicles with AI 5 built into them starting to roll off the production line. And of course, just as interestingly, the new generation of Optimus might be using that as well. It would make perfect sense to start installing AI 5 in the Optimi, because there will be relatively few of them over the next year or so as they begin to ramp up production. Anyway, Elon reiterates something else he said during the shareholder meeting. The Tesla AI 5 computer has approximately 10 times the capability of Hardware 4 computer, and Tesla makes the whole software stack. Making the entire software stack is actually a big deal, because it means that they're able to optimize for that hardware very, very hardcore. They don't have to play around with third-party APIs. They don't have to deal with the fact that the hardware was designed by somebody else and is not perfect for their needs. They can marry the hardware and the software very, very, very tightly, and that means that it should be incredibly effective at doing its job. And we should see major improvements with Hardware 5. And speaking of which, we should see major improvements with Hardware 4 once the Texas data center comes online and they can do training runs specifically for Hardware 4. I think the quote was, Elon says they will uncork Hardware 4 at that point, which means that by the end of this year, we should start to see Hardware 4 on our vehicles that have that really begin to sing, and see the full self-driving be substantially better than it is on Hardware 3 vehicles. And then to bring Optimus back into the fold, unfold, Warren Redlick, who is now Elon's bestie, I guess, replies to Elon's post about AI 5 saying, AI 5, formerly known as Hardware 5, is about far more than self-driving cars. AI 5 is for Optimus and for large-scale inference compute. And Elon responds very concisely, yeah. What does this mean? This means it's really more about Optimus and the future of humanoid robots more than the cars, but in terms of the cars themselves, it's actually more about inference than it is about the driving capabilities. In other words, Hardware 4 is going to be so good at full self-driving that it's going to basically be able to do it, and it's not going to be a problem anymore. Hardware 5 will give our vehicles the ability to do inference. So in other words, if you want to ask Grok a question or something like that, you can ask it a question, you can say, what does this picture look like? Write me a poem, whatever that kind of thing is. That then will get uploaded to the cloud from your computer or your phone, and then it could go to your actual vehicle or somebody's vehicle, and that vehicle itself could do inference. And that distributed inference has a huge effect on the ability of Tesla to be able to become a major player in inference compute over time. And I did a whole video dedicated to that. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. All right, in the interest of keeping things shorter, that's what I've got for you. Definitely let me know what you think in the comments. And while you're down there, if you don't mind liking and subscribing, that would be fantastic. It really helps the channel out. Thank you so much. And finally, a big thanks once again to Delete Me for sponsoring today's video. Be sure to check my link in the description to get 20% off any consumer data protection plan, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.